All right, welcome back to my channel. We are just going to go through the hero balance changes and what that means for the meta in each role. So this is a massive patch, and the big theme is tank changes. There's less passive durability and more intentional power. The big theme is lower passive survivability, fewer free defensive perks, more pressure windows, and tanks must commit more carefully. The biggest nerfs to me are between D.Va, Sigma, Zarya, and Orisa, and Narissa more so for like 6v6. But with D.Va, she has 50 HP in both formats, easier to DMAC, more punishable dives. So her, you see here it's been reduced. So this is a nerf for her. Um, Maga had a little bit of a buff, right? So nothing too crazy, tiny little buff with his ammo generation, so I don't think it's gonna cause anything. Orisa's already like kinda in the gutter as far as win rate. I think last season her win rate in higher elo was just 43%. Her major perk in 6v6 only, her cooldown was increased from 8 to 10 seconds. She might be playing a little bit better in 6v6, but in the core game 5v5, she's not having any changes happening. Yeah, nothing really happening with Orisa. I don't really think she's gonna be part of the meta. Reinhardt, his barrier recharge minor perk was removed, and his Crusaders Resolve minor perk was updated. So while using the barrier field, um, passive health regeneration triggers 75% sooner. So I think this is a pretty good minor perk update. Roadhog is a big winner here. He has a longer breather, more overhealth, and is much harder to kill. And this is for his 5v5 update. So pretty good update here for him. His resource maximum duration increased from 2.5 to 3 seconds, and his overhealth maximum increased from 250 to 300. So with dive, I think being a bit better in this patch, Roadhog might come into the scenario to be a pretty good counter pick. Sigma gets some big nerfs here. I mean, he was a server admin, but his barrier health is reduced from 700 to 650, and his hyper regeneration minor perk, which I've previously said is super OP, and it's just a minor perk, it's been reduced from 50 to 40%. Now his ability to get more barrier and regeneration there is going to be much lower. So this is a barrier nerf and weaker hyper regen, which means his barrier is more breakable and he's not a server admin, even though he still does a boatload of damage from the patch before this. Winston gets a little bit of update with his perks. Barrier Toss was removed, and Electric Charge minor perk. Winston gains 10% movement speed for each enemy damaged by his primary fire. Once again, I'm thinking we're trending more towards dive being the meta. This minor perk speaks to it for Winston getting a better minor perk to give him more speed. I don't know if it's going to be the best one, but it's one of the things that helps him with mobility. Wrecking Ball gets Pack Rat minor perk removed, and he gets this second minefield, which once again is super OP in my opinion. He deploys 7 additional mines up to 5 seconds after using his ult. So Wrecking Ball basically essentially has 1 major ult and 1 minor ult afterwards. So I think this is a big winner. Huge buff for Wrecking Ball, even though it's just a perk, and I think that's the minor perk everyone is going to take. Zarya is a big loser in this situation. So speaking back to like poke being nerfs, things like Sigma getting a little bit of a nerf. Now we're looking at Zarya getting some nerfs. So Zarya gets basically lower max DPS from 190 to 175, and her high energy is less oppressive now. So here you'll see particle cannon, primary fire, maximum damage reduced by 15. That's huge. Energy Converter minor perk, which was a really good perk in my opinion on Zarya, that was removed. And Spotter minor perk was moved from major to minor, but the movement speed bonus was reduced from 25 to 20%. Not a huge change there. An Energy Lance major perk no longer requires being above 50 energy, which is a little bit of a buff for that perk. And an Extra Oomph major perk while a barrier is active, dealing damage with particle cannon's beam generates energy. I think she gets, this is a nerf all in all with her damage, and that minor perk being removed. She's not a winner. That's pretty decent nerf for Zarya in my opinion. She's not going to be as strong. On-runs added in and got some changes. Fan the Flames, impact damage increased from 4 to 5. Maximum ammo increased 8 to 10 for her secondary, the Fan the Flames. So once again, we're buffing a dive hero. On-run is a dive hero. I think it's like she's like a better Genji with more survivability and just all in all, better kit.
Inferno Rush, maximum vertical height reduced by 20%, so she can't get as high up, but that's not a big deal. And they added hold to use Inferno Rush hero option, and cooldown for Dancing Blaze decreased from 10 to 8 seconds. Cleansing effect was removed. All these cleanses with Ana, which I think Ana is getting a big buff here as far as like the cleanses being removed. So there's some changes there as well that we'll go through. Ash, minor perk Sidewinder was removed, and a double-barreled minor perk is knocking an enemy back with Coach Gun briefly allows it to be used again with 25% reduced knockback. So trying to help with dive, I think being likely stronger with Winston, ball, and speed, and those speed incentives there, and Winston's extra damage is extra. Uh, um, oh, um, but damage roll, like, you know, I'm looking at mobility and utility shifts. So less burst gimmicks, more mobility consistency, and more perk identity shifts. And that's the core trend, in my opinion. So Cassidy on hit scan, huge quality of life buff. His roll cooldown increase reduced from 6 to 5 seconds. Gunslinging major perk was removed. Rolling round up major perk was added. Combat roll heals 15 health for each bullet reloaded. Could be a little bit more survivable, kind of like brawler Cassidy. Uh, Echo doesn't really get much change. The minor perk movement speed increased from 10 to 20%. That's a dive hero in my opinion, and this is Echo had a pretty high win rate, around like 52% in higher elo. Her movement speed buff here in this minor perk could be a little broken in my opinion. Freya, Hunter's Instinct removed. Relentless Barrage, minor perk moved from major to minor, and then Rising Winds, major perk updraft gains an additional charge. Nothing real crazy happening here. Hanzo, um, Swift Lunge minor perk removed. Dragon Fury minor perk moved from major to minor. Attack speed reduced by 5% and duration reduced by half a second. Frost Arrow major perk was added. Press reload to ready an explosive frost arrow that slows enemies by 35% for 3 seconds. So I'm thinking dive meta is here, and they're trying to add some things to help with dive to make it less oppressive. They're adding these perks, they're adding these abilities that once again show, hey, you need to be able to survive more if you're playing hit scan, if you're playing a distance hero. Um, so like the Ash perk, the displacement utility, getting the double knockback, the cast roll survivability, now the frost arrow on Hanzo. So these are things that are being updated. Just some perk updates to Pharah. Sky Spy major perk removed and it was replaced with Rocket Salvo. After using a movement ability, the next primary fire shoots 2 spiraling mini rockets, each dealing 40 damage. Nothing crazy here. Reaper, back to cleanses. This is why I think Ana is better. I think she was in the gutter last season. She was like hovering around like a 46% win rate. Another cleanse ability has been removed. Shadow Step no longer cleanses. This is a pretty big nerf for Reaper and a pretty big indirect buff for Ana. So I think Ana is moving up from like B tier to like A tier in my opinion here. It's pretty decent and viable. Soldier 76 hit scan here. Minor perk added using heal rockets no longer interrupts primary fire during tactical visor. Nothing too crazy. Recycled pulse munitions minor perk was removed. Helix propulsion minor perk Helix rocket projectile speed increased by 50%. Nothing too crazy happening with hit scan here. Sombra, like I said, dive is moving towards meta. I think Sombra is going to be pushed into that mix. And she has a major identity shift here. She has no more low health detection, and it now reveals enemy ultimate abilities on nameplates, which is very, very important. Now you now know this information. It is critical. Information assassin instead of cleanup assassin. This is huge, huge in organized play. So if you're playing in higher elo, this is a big, big buff. Healthy Hacker major perk was removed and high speed bandwidth major perk was added. Hacked health packs grant allies 25% movement speed and 50 overhealth for 4 seconds. So now health packs are adding movement speed. Going back to movement buffs, movement perks, movement abilities being the meta. Dive, dive, dive. This is what we're all about. There's very little updates to hit scan and non-mobile heroes besides giving them abilities to knock back and maybe slow and stun or more survivability for them, because dive looks like it is peak right here. Torbjorn got very little change. This minor perk update was removed and Molten Core activates overload. That's all it is, preheated. Tracer. So Tracer now has more consistent tracking, and but slightly less burst damage. Damage was slightly reduced from 6 to 5.75. They're doing this because D.Va is meta, and Tracer was very oppressive right before the poke meta that lasted for about 2 months last season. She was broken before that because she got the damage buff. Now they're reducing that back down. I think it was 5.5 before. They met in the middle ground, 5.75. They're doing this because D.Va is going to be meta. I'm telling you right now. Um, she has a bigger projectile size, and now her blink distance is increased by 20%. She is now able to go with her minor perk further, right? And her blink packs was moved from minor to major. So and that flashback major perk was removed. So this is all talking about movement speed. Movement speed. That's all we're talking about, right? We're talking about that. Vendetta has a high def rate, but can still be difficult to fight against when trading effectively. So they're adjusting her armor and making it more deliberate engagement choices while maintaining her ability to survive in close combat. So they're increasing her health. The dive hero getting increased health. Her armor is getting reduced though, but her soaring slice cooldown increased from 6 to 7. Her minor perk, extra edge, projected edge cost 25% less energy. Relentless major perk moved from minor to major, and they removed Swift Vengeance major perk. This is kind of like a middle ground. I don't think if it's a buff or a nerf, but still kind of like looking at Vendetta here, being very good. She was very good last season. Widowmaker, very minor changes, right? Just perk changes. Damage increased from 50 to 75 for the Seeker Mine. Escape Plan was removed. Widow's Bite major perk added. Scope shots can charge up to 125% piercing enemies when fully charged. Trying to think of dive here. You need to punish them in some way. You're going to be at a distance. You need to hit your shots on Widow. You're going to get 125% charge, and it's going to pierce enemies. Piercing is very strong. So trying to give her some sort of benefit of the doubt here that dive is just full on the meta. Support, less escape, more commitment. So the major pattern across support is cleanses have been removed. Huge Ana buff, right? So you can't really cleanse besides with like Kiriko's cleanse. That's it. Mobility has been toned down, so more punishable for supports because dive is the meta. They're going to punish that and reward dive in that situation. And healing reliability increased. So Baptiste, minor perk, moved from major to minor for his assault burst, attack speed reduced from 25 to 20%. Biotic reloader, minor perk was removed. Expanded field minor perk, immortality field, increased radius by 30%. This minor perk, Biotic reloader, was broken. They removed it from Baptiste's kit. So I think Baptiste is getting a big nerf in that case. But these perks are better for him because the immortality field radius is increased by 30%. So the immortality field being larger is a big win for him. And the 40 healing per shot perk is also crazy. So automated healing moved from minor to major. That healing per shot increased from 25 to 40. So this is a big buff, but it's a major perk now. It's no longer minor. So these are big buffs for him, and they move the assault burst minor perk to major, from major to minor. I just think this is good for Baptiste. Ilari, she needed some nerfs. She got him here. So we have lower heal regen and higher mobility cooldown. So she has less ability to move around. And she now has resource regeneration reduced from 43 to 35. So she had like a 57, 58% win rate. She's getting nerfed in this case. And it's a big nerf in my opinion. And Kiriko is getting a big nerf. Swift Step no longer cleanses. Huge survivability nerf for her. So she can no longer get her cleanse and teleport Swift Step, and be cleansed. So on use. So she doesn't have a double cleanse. Her projectile speed increased from 18 to 24. And Foxtrot major perk removed increased cooldown, recovery buff, movement speed buff, duration increased from 2 to 4 seconds. Speaking of trying to do mobility, trying to get more speed. Lifeweaver, I think, gets a big win here as well. Tree now converts 100% overheal to overhealth. That's massive in group fights. Just massive. Getting dove, popping that tree, it's going to be insane. Petal healing aura adds area sustain as well. So you see all these updates here. The overheal conversion rate from overhealing increased from 50 to 100%. Lifeweaver is looking very good in this situation. I don't think he's going to be meta, but he's looking good. Minor perk Lifeweaving removed. Cleanse grass minor perk removed. This is a big overwork, like change for his perks. Petal Power, major perk removed. Petal Protection, minor perk. Allies heal 20 health per second while standing on Petal platform. This could be good getting up into high range and getting health as you're on the platform. Dashing Escape, minor perk. Rejuvenating dash distance increased by 30%. This could be better to get away. Dealing with dive, mobility, getting away. Sow to Seed, major perk. Quick melee with healing. Blossom equip tosses a seed forward. Allies who picked up a seed gain 75 overhealth and 25% movement speed for 5 seconds. Thinking of movement speed to deal with dive and thinking about sustain to keep people alive. So Lifeweaver gets a big win here, in my personal opinion. Mercy, just minor changes. Sympathetic recovery passive removed. Swift recovery passive health regeneration begins sooner. So the medic sub role passive, they had to do a little bit of change here. It's nothing crazy. I think Mercy's gonna not be good because I don't think hit scan is gonna be meta this season. So she's gonna go back to just being an okay hero and not really that great. Moira, I think, gets bumped up because with dive, she can help with dive, right? She could pair up well with dive tanks, but she's still not gonna offer utility. Her minor perk was updated for Destruction's Divide. Focus healing damage bonus increased from 25 to 30%. So more sustain for heals. Still kind of like just whatever. No utility, but she fares out a little bit better, maybe around like B, high C tier because she helps with dive. Wu Yang, I think, is just going to be good in general because he helps enable dive and has a lots of movement speed. So his survivability is better, but he has strong survivability and strong damage output and pretty good healing. So his restorative stream passive healing is being reduced from 25 to 20. Beam healing increased from 50 to 55. So they're trying to nerf that a little bit, but I think he's still going to be good and be strong in a meta, like strong A tier support. And Zenyatta's getting a big buff here. Transcendent Condemnation, minor perk is being removed. Discordant Repair, minor perk. Zenyatta gains 10% lifesteal against enemies affected by Discord Orb. This is huge. More self-sustain in duels. I still don't think Zen is going to be meta because dive is meta and he doesn't do well with dive. He does well with poke. But this goes back to my sort of overall theme here is we need more survivability in some of these supports, more movement speed ability, stuff like that. That's what they're adding because the overall meta read is what gets stronger, right? What gets stronger here from this patch? Dive comps. Dive comps. Coordinated alt tracking with Sombra. I think Sombra is huge buff there. So all this, and Sombra is dive, right? You can also have rush comps with Tree of Life. Domina being very strong, right? She's not in his patch notes, but Domino is extremely strong. And being to rush forward with that, have Tree of Life being a lot of sustain. I think Lifeweaver is a big winner here. And Roadhog helps out, right? With dealing with dive. So he's going to have a little bit of play here. But I do think dive is the overall meta this season. I don't think it's the full meta, being that Domino is very strong. And I've seen her in comp being extremely strong. So we got to see how it plays out. It's still too early to tell, but dive is trending towards the meta. So what gets weaker here is shield spam. So that whole poke comp kind of situation, cleanse stacking, passive survivability tanks, high energy Zarya melt, all that gets nerfed. That gets weaker. Biggest impact changes top 5. Kiriko cleanse removal, right? With her teleport, her swift step. And also the cleanse removal in general for a lot of these heroes like Anran, Reaper, stuff like that. That's huge for Ana. I think Ana gets a big buff here, just indirectly. D.Va HP nerf is huge. Sombra revealing enemy ultimates is huge. Lifeweaver tree overhaul, basically doubling in its effectiveness, is huge. And yeah, I mean, I think that's really the big 5 there is Kiriko cleanse removal, and then 2 being the other cleanses being removed from other heroes, and that being an Ana buff. So yeah, D.Va HP nerf, Sombra revealing ultimates, and Lifeweaver retreat overhaul. So this is a huge patch, lots of changes. I'm glad the poke comp is gone. I'm glad being an Ana main that Ana is getting better. Let me know what you think I missed in the comments below. I also don't think Jetpack Cat is broken. I think you can easily counter her. So that could go in a whole nother video that I'll talk about. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think, what I may have missed. If I'm thinking wrong here, maybe I am. Well, as always, take care.